Hi, I'm Helen, and this is Why Mums Don't Jump. Busting taboos about leaks and lumps after childbirth. All the stuff that happens to your pelvic floor that no one ever talks about. Incontinence, prolapse, pelvic pain, problems that affect millions of women, 1 in 3. I'm one of them. I have a prolapse. My pelvic organs fell out of place after the birth of my second child. And if you had told me back then that I would be speaking about this stuff out loud, I would have told you to give your head a wobble. Hi, how's it going? Just when you thought it was all over, I have a cheeky bonus episode just for you. As you'll know, this past season has been sponsored by iMEDicare, which supplies easy-to-use, medically approved products for pelvic health. It's what has made the last few months possible, and I'm really grateful to the team for supporting Why Mums Don't Jump. So, in this one-off episode, we're going to hear from a couple of people. Firstly, from Vicky, a keen runner who struggled for ages with stress incontinence, but says using the Efemia Bladder Support has changed her life.
I wear tight lycra now. I don't wear a pad with it. I don't wear a pad at all. It's freeing.
And then we're going to hear from Darren Breen, founder of iMEDicare.
Just making people aware that these devices exist is the great passion for me, because it can transform their quality of life.
So let's get into it. Vicky Grubb is an upholsterer who lives on the south coast of England. She's a mum of 2 boys, now 15 and 12, and the team at iMEDicare put us in touch because Vicky has been using one of the products they supply and was so impressed that she asked if she could help spread the word. So this is the Efemia Bladder Support. It's a vaginal pessary designed for stress incontinence, and this is Vicky's story.
It was really when I started to get into wanting to do some sport, some exercise, and, lose a bit of that kind of mum weight around my tummy. And I thought, I'll just start playing tennis. And that was when I kind of discovered that I couldn't do any kind of overexertion of running, jumping, leaping without having some leaking. But I think really my problem stems back from childbirth. And I don't think that's unusual. I think anybody that's been through an vaginal birth has some issue of some sort. And for me, I actually, my first birth was okay, but my second birth, I gave birth very quickly, and I actually had a huge 3-way tear. And I had to be sewn up and everything. And so I was in theatre for a couple of hours, and, it was really quite traumatic actually when I think back to it. I mean, right now I'm 15, I'm 12 years on from it, so it's not so traumatic. But when I think about what I actually went through and how I sort of coped with that, and then the aftermath of that, it is actually, it really does change your body. It really does. But at the time, I didn't do any exercise, and I didn't really know, I wasn't leaking in everyday life. So if I went down to the shops or what have you, I didn't leak. I was absolutely fine. The real problem started when I was about 36, 37, 38, something like that. And I thought, right, I really need to get out there and do some exercise and keep fit and, start, growing some abs or whatever. So I joined the tennis club, and I loved tennis. I mean, I was absolutely awful at it. I still am, to be honest. I spent 2 years doing lessons, and I went along. And what I would do is, so initially, I was like, oh gosh, right, okay, I'm going to have to do something about this. Right, let's go to the shops and I get some tennis pads. Let's bulk it up down there. So I went and got every kind of product I could to try and kind of, right, it's only 1 hour. So what I'll do is I won't drink anything between the hours of 8 and 10. And then I've got my lesson 10 to 11. So I'll be dehydrated, but that's okay because it means that I'll be less likely to wet myself. And also wear this huge tennis pad. And with that came very baggy kind of, tracksuit bottoms and things like that. So you had to kind of mitigate all of the problems. And that, I suppose, went on for a fair few months. And then the thing that kind of changed it was when I had a private lesson And it was an afternoon, like the only time he could do was an afternoon, and it was a shared location. So there's lots of different tennis courts and lots of people playing. And I did okay up to about 45 minutes in, and then I just literally, there was no toilets anywhere close. And at least when I was playing tennis in the club, I knew where the toilet was, but this was outside and it was in the middle. There's no toilets nearby. And I just wet through my leggings, and I was wearing grey leggings, because that's the other thing, you mitigate by wearing all black, just in case you get any kind of leaks. So there's lots of things that you do to kind of hide it, if you like. So I was wearing grey leggings, and I just couldn't hide it. It was just all there. It was right. I just sort of like crept off the tennis court, and I thought, I have got to do something about this, because what I'm doing isn't really working. So I thought, right, I'll go and see a physio. That would be the best thing for me to do. So I booked in with a woman who basically said, right, you need to start doing your exercises. And I think with that, I thought, oh, well, this will just solve it. This will just solve the problem. And I don't know if any listeners have ever been to a physio for the pelvic floor issue, but I didn't look it up or anything. I didn't know what to expect. And it's actually quite invasive, to be honest. I mean, you start there with, thinking, oh, it's just, she's going to teach me how to do these exercises, and it's going to be really great, and I'm going to just be able to, clench up, and then we're going to be
problem solved.
Problem solved. But what actually happens is you go in, and my particular physio actually inserted her fingers into my vagina, and for a good half an hour I had to clench my vagina and then unclench it, and she would tell me where I was clenching wrong, or which part was clenching and which wasn't. And sometimes I'd go along and she'd be like, oh no, you've over tightened it, and I'd be like, oh, for God's sake, like I can't do anything right. 1 minute I'm under clenching, the next minute I'm over tightening.
It's so confusing.
What am I doing wrong? And I think I would talk to my friends about this, who had mostly my friends had C-sections actually, and they didn't really have any problems. But I did have one friend who, she was like, oh gosh, I do my pelvic floor exercises all the time. And I was like, really? She was like, yeah, every time I'm at the traffic lights, I'm in the car, I'm doing them. And she never has a problem, and she really is good at keeping up with the exercises. But for me, I just forgot all about doing them. And by the time you remember, it's like late at night, and I just never got into the, it's all
really
my fault, really.
No, you're not on your own. I mean, first of all, you're right. We don't know enough about any of this stuff. Who even knew that pelvic floor physiotherapists, existed before we needed to see one? And then when you do, you've got this vague idea that, just doing some squeezes at the traffic lights is going to sort out all of your problems. But it's not the same for everyone, because everyone's problems are different. And some people, it's overly tight. And actually what you really need to address is to relax the pelvic floor. And for some people, actually something else is going on. So it's just another one of these things, because we don't talk about it. We don't know enough about how to address it. So I'm not surprised. And don't blame yourself, because we're all in the same boat.
Okay, well, that's good. You don't really know who else is suffering through it, as I say, because people don't like to sort of talk about this issue. But after that, I thought to myself, it's 6 months, it hadn't really worked. So I thought, right, what else can I do? And I have to be honest with you, I have tried everything. I literally have tried everything. So the next thing I did was the Kegel weights. And to a certain extent, I felt like that did work a little bit, but it wasn't really giving me I wanted it to be cured. I just wanted to not be able to wear a tennis pad when I went to tennis, that's all I wanted. So after that, I went online, and there was a woman, and I really should have just double checked what her name was, because I can't actually remember, but I think her name was Shannon. And she is Australian, and she does a course, an online course. And I did that course. I paid for it. I think that was about maybe $70 or something like that. And it was an exercise program, and it was quite a commitment again. And again, to an extent, that did work. But at this point, I'm spending hundreds of pounds on physio. I've got tens of pounds on Kegel weights, and now I'm spending this money on these online courses, and it's still not curing this problem, to be honest. So then I think it was at that point I started to get into running, and I stopped with the tennis. And I thought tennis was bad, but running was actually about 10 times worse for me,
really?
personally.
Okay, yeah.
Yes. So, I mean, at the beginning, because when you start running, you're not that great. So you don't have the cardio. So you're only kind of running maybe around the block. So I could dehydrate myself, and it meant that I could still wear lycra and I could be okay for that. So I thought, right, well, I'll start doing that. And then I thought, well, after a while, I started to want to do parkrun and event runs, because I quite liked doing down here. There's the Maverick runs and things, and then again, I was like, no, I've got to find something. Because I was into running, I started to follow runners and set up a little running site on Instagram, actually, and called Vicky Runs. And I started to follow runners, and that's when I saw Sophie Power. And Sophie Power, who you have interviewed,
friend of the podcast, yeah.
You're right, yes. I can't even remember how I saw it, but she incidentally just started talking about wearing a pessary. And I was like, what's a pessary? I had no idea, absolutely no idea what a pessary was. So then I started looking for pessaries, and well, what I found was there aren't really any. There weren't at the time in the UK. So I found one in Canada. And I spoke to the inventor of that one, and I can't remember the name because it's a while ago. And she was like, "Oh no, we don't export to the UK because it's Brexit. It's too expensive. And charges import export.
Yeah.
So we don't bother." And I was like, "Oh, right, okay. So, how do I get this amazing product you've invented?" And they were the ones that put me in contact with iMEDicare. And they said that they do a product. And I can't remember who I emailed, or I just randomly emailed. I said, "Look, I'm desperate, I need something." And they said, and that's where I found this incredible product. And I call it Efemia, but I don't know, do you call it Efemia?
I have been calling it Efemia.
I've always called it Efemia, but I think that's maybe Efemia, but
Efemia.
Efemia. And it has been life-changing. And, I don't say that about many products. And, it was just bowled over the first time I used it. So I bought from them, and it came in 3 sizes, small, medium, large. I thought, well, I'll try the medium. And I have never looked back. I literally put that product in, and I don't think I've ever leaked when I've had it in for running. And I'm now at the stage of running, so I'm a bit, I've got the cardio now, and I'm running slightly longer distances, and I'm up to 32 kilometers now. And so I could run 32 kilometers, and I can drink before I run and drink during the run, because you actually have to hydrate when you're running that distance.
Yes.
And no leakage. And the thing is what I tend to do is I'll take it with me on a run, and I will pop it in right before the run. Now, you don't really feel the product. The product kind of sits in that zone like a tampon does, where you don't actually feel, you don't feel a tampon unless it starts to move out. You don't really feel it. And so
it's a really soft silicone thing. It's like a floppy soft silicone, isn't it, as well? So it's not
that's right. Yeah, so it's like a sort of soft plasticky feel. It looks a bit, well, I guess it's like a sort of rounded dummy, if you like.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it.
Yeah, it's got a little kind of hook, like
little handle.
A little handle, yeah. And you face that bit towards your anus, and then you just forget about it whilst you're doing your exercise, or for me anyway. And then what I tend to do is when I've finished my run, I will take it out immediately. But in all honesty, you can still go to the toilet with it in. You can still wear tampons with it in, because obviously I still have my monthly cycles, and I still want to run during those times. To clean it, I just use a bit of soap and water afterwards, and it's just a really easy product that you can reuse. So the outlay cost, I think, is around £50, and you can use it for quite some time. I mean, for me, I don't wear it every day because I only wear it for exercise. So mine obviously will go on and on.
Yeah.
I think the recommended time frame is about 3 months for it.
Yes, it
if
is.
you're using it every day.
It's also in a lot of areas is available on NHS prescription as well. So if it's something that people want to try, that's another way that they could get a hold of it. Go see your GP.
And I wish I was told that, because it's spent hundreds of pounds and lots of my time researching to find it.
And I think that's one of the things that's come out of doing this podcast that I really want to be the case. It's like there are ways and means that different people can manage their symptoms, but if we don't talk about it and we don't know about it, then we're never going to come across them. So being able to share these stories and just give someone a little bit of something, I can relate to that, maybe that is the answer for me, and maybe I can even get it through my GP. Like, yes, brilliant. Why wouldn't we do more of this? So I think it's great, and I'm excited. It's always nice to have positive stories as well, because oftentimes it is a really long journey, and people, it's hard to find a solution that works for people. So and how are you doing now then? I mean, it feels very positive, like this has kind of just been the thing that helps you to manage your symptoms, get on with life.
Really, essentially, I am just a normal gal, a mum, a working mum, and I just love running. I like to do a little bit of exercise. I'm doing running a couple of times a week, and this just allows me not to have to think about the thing that I just desperately wanted to solve. I wear, tight lycra now. I don't wear a pad with it. I mean, I don't wear a pad at all. I don't need to wear a pad anymore. It's freeing. It's so freeing. And that's the one thing that you want when you want to exercise, is you just want to feel that you can just whack on your lycra and get out the door.
Vicky Grubb, who's on Instagram as @the_upholstery_cabin. I will link it in the show notes, along with more information about Efemia and a discount code. And if you want to know more about pessaries more generally, either for stress incontinence or for prolapse, I have a couple of episodes which will help, I think, and I'll link those in the show notes, as well as one about what you can expect from a physio appointment. Next up, let's hear from Darren Breen, founder and managing director of iMEDicare. We had a really nice chat about his background, his passion for pelvic health, and some of the other products that are helping people to manage their symptoms.
So my name is Darren Breen. I'm originally, a long time ago, from Northern Ireland via university in Scotland, and then I've lived actually in the London area since about 1996. So I studied medical sciences. I wasn't sure what to do after university, and got a job literally to pay the bills as a medical device rep in the field of urology. And very quickly realized that actually I really enjoyed it. I was able to use my medical knowledge. It's a very sociable job, and you're promoting awareness of products that help change people's lives for the better. So eventually I thought, well, why not set up my own company? And I noticed there was, you could call it a gap in the market, but it was more that I actually really liked urology. Decided to focus on urological devices, initially andrology, which is male sexual dysfunction, but that later grew into incontinence devices, and now more recently even fecal incontinence devices. So the remit nowadays is pelvic health. We deal with anything that links to pelvic health conditions and the devices that can be used to assist those. Generally, patient home use devices. Patients can either buy or get on prescription through the NHS for home use to manage a problem and just make it easier to live with, or in some cases treat a problem. So that was 20 years ago next week.
Oh, happy birthday.
On the 4th of September, we celebrate our 20th anniversary, which I'd completely forgotten until someone reminded me yesterday. But it is a very significant milestone because we've actually been working really hard in the UK. We have a great team of medical reps all over the country and a great customer services team. And we're actually very busy. And the NHS loves our products, and we love the NHS, and we love helping people.
We've spoken before, and it comes across so clearly that you are passionate about this industry, or this. It's very niche, isn't it? Like, there aren't many companies who are in this field. Where does that passion come from for you?
Well, it's a combination of things. It's a fascination with medical science and clinical disease processes, a fascination with gadgets, the idea that actually devices have come a long way in the last 20, 30 years. They're now very sophisticated and can work extremely well. And they're really sustainable in the sense that you can wash and reuse most of the devices many times, which of course is good for the environment. But I think the most important thing is to be able to help people, and just making people aware that these devices exist is the great passion for me, because it can transform their quality of life. So in incontinence, there's what we call the mix and match approach. There's no one particular device that can manage every single problem, but some devices are better in different types of social or exercise scenarios. So just knowing what they are, how to use them, can really transform the quality of life of an individual.
And that's something that has really stood out to me about iMEDicare, is this option for people to access product training, or just to get a bit of help, a bit of support to find devices that might work for them, and then how to use them. Because I think you said it there, like, people just aren't aware that these products exist.
The truth is that getting a device is only the start of the process. You have to know how to use it properly, and of course you can read the instructions, but they're often quite complicated and difficult to follow. So we have a team of reps that can provide one-to-one training, and that can be by telephone, online Zoom call, which is probably the best way of doing it. Or if you're really struggling, they can actually come and visit you at home and talk you through the whole process, so that you've got a much better chance of being successful.
I've spoken to Vicky about the bladder support, Efemia, but that's obviously just one of the pelvic floor devices you stock. Let's run through a couple more.
Yeah, so we started off with washable incontinence underwear called Wherever, which is now supplied by the NHS. Actually, the hospitals order them, and the continence nurses can supply them. Then we branched on to Efemia, which you've discussed already in great detail, which is an amazing device to help manage stress incontinence, inserted like a tampon just above the pelvic floor into the vaginal corridor. And it literally pinches the urethra in a very gentle manner, so that when you're coughing or sneezing, or you're jumping around with exercise, when the abdominal weight content presses on the bladder, which would ordinarily cause leakage, it literally just blocks the leakage so you don't leak. After that, we took on a device called Ball, which looks like a large pink sperm.
Yeah, I've seen this.
Yeah, so the head of it is like an egg, pink in colour, and then attached to that is a long ribbed tail. So the idea is that it can be positioned inside the vaginal corridor, and inside the ball is a weighted diamond device that bounces around with the tiniest of movements, and that provides a vibrational sensation that is what we call proprioceptive. It allows the brain to understand where the weight is, so that you know where to focus your pelvic floor contraction when you're doing your Kegels to try to treat your stress incontinence. So we recommend patients would follow the normal NHS protocol of Kegel exercises. This just makes it much easier for them to know where to squeeze, which is often the dilemma. And we've also got, very recently, a wonderful set of active sportwear called Lumena. So they're like leggings and shorts with modern designs and colours. but they have a reinforced pelvic area. So there's a thickened pad underneath the pelvic region that has polyester on the top surface to wick the moisture from a urine leakage or a menstrual leak straight into the cotton pad segment, so that when you're doing your Zumba class or your CrossFit session, you can be a little bit more confident that visible leakage is not going to be a problem.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's just more and more things coming onto the market since I've been talking about this for the last 5, 6, 7, I don't know how long now, quite a number of years. All the time I'm coming across these products that I haven't heard of before, and all of them work in a slightly different way. And I guess some work better for some people and others work better for others. But where do you see the future of this heading? Because it sort of feels to me like it's quite an exciting space, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. And medical science is exciting as we learn more about how the human body works, and engineers get involved and they improve product quality and design and make it more specific and customizable to the individual. So innovation will not stop, and in fact I think the pace of innovation is growing, and of course our job is to make sure that people know these things exist.
Darren Breen, founder of iMEDicare, Pelvic Health Naturally. You can find the products mentioned as well as a discount code via the affiliate shop on my website. I will link them and iMEDicare in the show notes for this episode. You've been listening to Why Mums Don't Jump with me, Helen Ledwick. If you enjoyed it, please spread the word, tell a friend, leave a review. It all helps others to find it. You can find me online at whymumsdon'tjump.com and on socials at whymumsdon'tjump. And don't forget, there's a book. It's based on my own experience of prolapse, as well as some of the stories and experts from the podcast. It's called Why Mums Don't Jump. You can find it wherever you buy your books or through my website. Thank you to everyone who's done that. Put my heart and soul into it, so it means a lot. That's it from me. Bye for now.